Alright, so you're going to look today on energy flow through ecosystem. So we're looking at a food chain right there on the board. It has a lot of drawings on it, so we're going to understand what's happening here. Now, first thing, remember your callaloo leaf here is going to be termed a producer, right? So the producer is called the producer because it does a very important job, and that important job is to convert the sun's light energy into food and store it in its leaves, stems, roots, fruits, wherever it stores it. That process is called photosynthesis. Good. So because the plant, so we call the plant a producer, and because the plant is able to carry out the process of photosynthesis by converting the sun's light energy, so the source of energy, the ultimate source of energy is the sun. Now the plant takes that sunlight energy and convert it into chemical energy and store it in the leaves, stems, root, shoot, wherever. Now this little caterpillar came along and start to feed on the callaloo. Let's say it feeds on the leaf. When it feeds on the leaf, it's going to take in the energy from the plant. This energy now is in the form of starch. It's going to store some in its body tissues that makes it fat and juicy. All right. It is also going to lose some of that energy because caterpillars, when they actually extract the energy from the food, they undergo a process called respiration, and that process produces heat. That heat is a form of energy and it is wasted, it's lost to the environment. Also, the caterpillar is going to excrete, right? Excretion is a natural process, so it's going to produce feces and urine. Within the feces and the urine, there is some amount of energy that the caterpillar did not extract from the or it did not get to store. Good. So in essence, the amount of energy being stored here is less than was stored here. Good. So you kind of pick up a trend. What's happening? The energy is getting less. Now, can you assume now what will happen when the chicken eats the caterpillar? Good. The chicken is also going to go through the process of respiration, so it's going to lose some energy to the environment in the form of heat. It's also going to produce waste, so therefore some amount of that energy that the chicken takes in is also going to be lost in its urine and its feces, and as a result of that, it's going to store less amount of energy will be stored in comparison to the amount that the caterpillar stored. Good. Keeping the trend going, and when we get to the chicken arc, the same process. Good. Lose to the environment. So if we go back to our producer, we will realize that as we move up the trophic levels, good, from producer to primary consumer to secondary consumer to tertiary consumer, the energy is getting less. Good. Please note that. So to summarize this, as I say, if you look at the producer, it has only one arrow with respiration as heat. So there's only really one pathway for which the plant loses some amount of energy, and that is through respiration. But as you go up here, you realize that you have respiration as well, but also feces and urine are being produced, so some energy is being lost here through two pathways, but down here it's one. So the amount of energy that is being stored by this plant in comparison to the primary consumer is going to be more. So the primary consumer is storing less energy than the callaloo. The chicken is storing less energy than the caterpillar. And the chicken hawk is storing less energy than the chicken. Alright, so going full circle now, want to include another group of organisms. And this group, we call them decomposers. Now the decomposers are very important because remember we said that the feces and the urine being produced they have some amount of energy inside. When the organisms die, there's still some amount of energy stored in their tissues. Now, all of that is going to be broken down by fungi and bacteria, and they will extract the energy that is left behind in the organisms. Waste product are their bodies that are being decomposed. So the bacteria and the fungi are extremely important. Also, you have detritivores such as earthworms, and if you have one big vulture, still a saprophyte, right? They feed on the dead bodies and stuff like that. Good. So energy actually decreases. Have a big source up here, but as it moves through the environment, it decreases. Now in the textbook you're gonna see these two terms. Now some people when they read the textbook they might have a challenge actually working out a good understanding of these two terms. Biomass really is referring to the dry mass or the mass of the living tissue within the environment. So all of the, say for this, go back to our food chain, the dry mass of the chicken, the dry mass of the chicken, the dry mass of the caterpillar, and the dry mass of the callaloo plant would give you the biomass in this ecosystem of 4 organisms. But we all know that in reality, ecosystems are not made up of 4 organisms. So this, when we talk about producers, if we're talking about producers and we say grass, in reality we are talking about the amount of grass in one specific area. Let's take for example the football field. All the grass, you'd have to take up all the grass off the football field and then dry it out, and you get the total biomass for the producer. And then you'd have to add that up to the caterpillar. It means you'd have to take all the caterpillars that would have been on the football field, dry them out, and then you get the dry mass of the caterpillar. That's how we do it in an ecosystem. Alright? The biomass is really determined by the amount of energy being trapped by the producer. So for example, if we have a large amount or abundance of callaloo plant and abundance of sunshine, then these plants, you will have a lot of them and they store a lot of energy, so therefore they can accommodate a whole heap of caterpillar. And if you can accommodate a whole heap of caterpillar, guess what? You're going to have a whole heap of chickens coming to this area to feed on caterpillars. And if you have a whole heap of chickens feeding on caterpillars in this area, then you're going to find that a lot of chicken are going to venture around this area because they see chickens there to eat, and the chickens are there because they see caterpillar to eat, and the caterpillars are there because there's a lot of callaloo in the area for them to eat. So the length of a food chain, and if you have something that feeds on the chicken arc, then your food chain extend and you have a quaternary consumer. So the length of your food chain really depends on the amount of energy that is being produced by the producers.